symptoms are quite familiar, and very likely you'll come up with a correct diagnosis. Yes, it looks like a cold, a common cold. Runny nose, headache, achiness, very often a slight fever. Those are some of the symptoms of the common cold. Well, how do we get into that unhappy state? Do we have colds simply because of cold? Because of ice, snow, and low temperature? No. Funny thing about colds, where it is coldest, the inhabitants hardly ever get colds. Explorers tell us that Eskimos are cold-free, unless they come in contact with visitors from outside their frozen world. Then, if it is not just cold weather, what is it that causes so many of us to catch cold? Scientists think that most colds are caused by extremely small microorganisms called viruses. Viruses, and there are many different kinds of them, can be scattered with each particle of saliva and mucus. When one sneezes or coughs, for instance. But do not think for a moment that cold-producing viruses are spread only by sneezing and coughing. If by some magic the tiny particles of saliva and mucus could be made visible as a black smudge, we quickly would realize in how many other ways we are apt to scatter bacteria and viruses all around us. For instance, Jane here has a cold. Look at that smudge. Look at those germs she leaves on the doorknob. And here's Bob's hand picking them up. Bob, his hand now covered with germs picked up from that doorknob, transfers them to a book. Sue, having the bad habit of wetting her finger to turn pages, carries the germs from the book to her mouth, and then passes them along with a pencil to Anne. Anne carries them home and leaves them on the family's dinner table. Yes, even during an ordinary conversation, saliva and mucus particles escape our mouth and easily reach others who inhale them as they breathe. Just remember how breath becomes visible on a cold day. How then, with so many germs surrounding us, can we avoid having colds all the time? Well, fortunately, our body has defenses against this enemy. Normally, we breathe through our nose. The nose, as well as the sinuses, the eustachian tubes, and the throat, are lined with a delicate membrane. If, under a microscope, you look at the lining of the nose, we call it the nasal membrane, you can see that it is covered with tiny moving threads. These are called cilia. They move back and forth like stalks of grain when a wind blows over a field. The cilia are covered with a warm, moist, sticky substance called mucus. The nose usually secretes about a quart of this liquid every 24 hours. This mucus, by warming and moistening the air we breathe in, prepares it for our lungs. The mucus also catches and destroys microorganisms, that is, bacteria and viruses. The movement of the cilia carries the mucus down to the pharynx. Then it is coughed out or swallowed into the stomach, where any remaining microorganisms are destroyed by the digestive juices. If these defenses are weakened, the cold virus will gain a foothold and cause the inflammations which so often are associated with the common cold. The common cold is not a serious sickness, but still, medical science as yet has not found a cure for it. Ah, yes, there are remedies galore, all sorts of medications, which soothe pain and headaches and so bring some relief. However, they do not cure colds. And no matter how convincingly they may be advertised, do not use them without having checked with your doctor. But there is a sound prescription. If you have a cold, don't stay in school, because if you do, you may send others home with your cold. If you have a cold, stay home. Stay in bed. This is the prescription which common sense and medical science recommend. Medicines, but only those your doctor prescribes. No others. Warmth, rest, which you can get best when you stay in bed. And while you're there, you might as well make the best of it. Right. Use tissues instead of handkerchiefs. That way you'll dispose of the germs much better than when you blow them into a handkerchief. However, should you not feel better in a couple of days, or if you keep on having a fever, you should ask your parents to call a doctor. You see, what you think is a simple cold could really be the first symptoms of some other disease, such as measles, infantile paralysis, diphtheria, whooping cough, scarlet fever, influenza, and others. However, even if your illness proves to be only a simple cold, it is still important that you take care of it. A cold which is not treated might very well back up along the mucous membrane and so invade the sinuses, the cavities in the bones of the face and the skull. Or the infection may reach the middle ears when it invades the eustachian tubes, which connect the middle ears with the throat. Frequently, the inflammation also travels down the respiratory tract to the pharynx, the larynx, and the trachea. Your throat feels sore and your voice is husky. It travels to the bronchi. You have a bad cough. And occasionally even to the lungs, and that is pneumonia. These are painful complications, and they often take a long time to clear up. The best defense against the common cold and all these other diseases is to keep up the body's natural resistance. To do so, you must eat regularly and well-balanced meals. That is, meat, vegetables, fruit, milk, and so on. Get lots of exercise and fresh air, but do not exhaust yourself. In cold weather, you must wear sensible clothing to provide proper warmth to remain healthy. Go to bed at a reasonable hour. While you grow, you need about 10 hours of sleep each night. Sleep recharges the body's energies. Protect yourself against infection. Keep pencils and other things out of your mouth. Never take bites of other people's food. Do not use somebody else's drinking straw or glass, not even within your own family. In the bathroom, for instance, use only your glass. And wash your hands frequently and thoroughly, especially before eating. When you wash your hands, you wash away many of the disease-carrying smudges you may have picked up. But if in spite of all these precautions, you still come down with a cold, let us repeat, take it to bed and stay there until it has run its course. This is the safest way to regain your health and to return as quickly as possible to work, to fun, and to play.
This man is an author. He writes stories. He has just finished writing a story. He thinks many people will like to read it. So he must have the story made into a book. Let's see how the book is made. First, the story goes to the printing shop. This workman is a typesetter. He starts the job of preparing the story so it can be printed. He types the story on this machine, letter by letter. Every time the typesetter touches a key, a mold for a letter slides into this box. Many molds together make a line. Every time the lever goes up, melted metal pours over the letter molds inside the machine. When the metal cools off, it hardens and makes a line of words. It takes many lines like this to make a page. As the typesetter works on new lines, a man takes the finished lines over to a long table. Here he arranges the lines for each page. This page is to have a picture. The picture takes up the space of many lines. The composer then goes to the next page. With a piece of wood, the composer marks the end of each page. When many pages like this are ready, a workman takes them to another part of the printing shop. Then this workman takes the lines of type for many pages and fits them into a metal frame. He must be careful not to mix them up. Long and short pieces of metal keep the pages apart and fill out the edges. This key locks the lines and pictures tightly in the frame. He locks them on all sides. Then he evens all the lines so that none of them will stick up. Then all is locked still tighter so that the lines and pages won't come apart. But the words and lines of type are of soft metal. They would soon wear out in printing. In this shop, they are made into copper. Copper is hard. Let's watch how this is done. This operator covers the lines and pages with a plate of wax. Then he pushes it into the press. Down goes the press, and out comes the wax plate with all the pictures and letters pressed into the soft wax. Next, another worker dips the wax plate into a large tank which has copper in it. The copper goes into all the places where the letters have pressed into the wax. It forms a solid plate. It has the same letters and same pictures as before, but it is much stronger. Many books can be printed from copper plates. Now the plates are cut apart. This sharp saw easily cuts through the hard copper. Each of these small plates has the words and pictures for just one page of the book. Next, the plates go over to the printing press. Here, this workman makes the plates ready for printing on this press. That is why they call him the ready man. The space where you see him now is called the press bed. 64 pages fit on one bed. The ready man fits every plate tightly to the bed in the right order. There are two beds on this press, one for each side of the paper. Both press beds of this printing press must be filled with plates before the printing can begin. Now, one push of a button and the big press starts. The paper travels around the drums. Rollers spread the ink evenly over the plates. First, one side of the paper is pressed to one set of plates, then the other side of the paper to the other set. Sheet after sheet, the printed pages begin to pile up at one end of the press. This workman now examines the sheets to see if they are nicely and clearly printed. Now let's see what happens to these sheets after they're printed. Here in the bookbinding plant, they first come to the folding machine. Each large printed sheet will be folded until it reaches the size of a single page. And the machine goes on, folding and folding, until all the printed sheets have been folded. This man checks the folders to make sure that the pages follow each other in the right order. Then all the folders are taken to another part of the bindery. This part is called the gathering room. These girls stack the folders in piles and put each pile into its proper bin. They see to it that there are always folders in every bin. This machine gathers the folders in the right order from the first page to the last page of the book. One by one, the machine gathers all the folders for one book. At the end of this long machine, the folders are coming out, all the pages for the book. Here, other girls take the assembled folders to other machines. Here, a machine sews them together. Again, each folder goes into the machine separately. This machine sews the folders together with strong thread. The sewing will keep the pages from coming apart. After the books have been sewed, they go on to the trimming shop. This machine trims the pages to just the right size with 3 sharp knives. First with one knife for the long side of the book, then with 2 knives for the 2 short sides. But the books are not yet finished. They still need covers. Strong book covers are made from paperboard. First, the paperboard is cut just the right size. Next, cloth from this roll is glued over the paperboard. This makes covers that are strong and good-looking. At last, the name of the book is stamped on the cover in shining gold letters. Now, the covers are ready for the pages of the book to be put inside them. One push, and the book has a cover around it. Another push, and the cover is glued tight. Here they go, all finished and ready for shipping to all parts of the world. The story has been made into a book for readers everywhere.
The guardians of our health, our doctors, nurses, teachers, and parents, are working together to keep us well. All of them must know and agree on the health practices we need at home, in the neighborhood, and at school. This is Joan, getting ready for school. Joan learned at school that it's important to choose the right clothes on a cold day. The temperature is 40, too cold for just a coat. She will need her snowsuit if she wishes to keep well for the Dutch festival. And this is Jim, Joan's brother. They choose wraps to keep all of their body warm. Mother is glad to see Jim looking so well this morning. Their color is good, their eyes alert. They're ready for work or play. Mother needs to get another supply of paper handkerchiefs. Jim's friend George is eating an apple as he waits for them. That is a wise no thank you, Joan. Never share another's food. George has forgotten something. Something that helps keep him clean. It's lucky for George that Joan has an extra tissue to lend him. Some children learn to jump or go around puddles, but George wades right into trouble because he forgot his galoshes. This is Miss May, Joan's teacher. George and Joan are glad to be in school. The children are getting ready for their Dutch festival. Tom has brought the thermometer in so that the children can guess what the weatherman doll should wear today. A raincoat and umbrella? Oh, no. A snowsuit and galoshes to keep him warm and dry. It was hard to guess today, but Tom is a good guesser. Or did Mother tell him what to wear? George, you forgot something more important than your handkerchief. You forgot to cover your sneeze, and cold germs travel on your sneeze or cough, you know. Why, cold germs can fly farther than Miss May can blow the feather. Cold germs can fly 8 feet to another child's nose, hand, or food. People who put fingers into their mouths make it easy for cold germs to come to them. No, not that way, George. Blow your nose gently, without pressing the opening of the nostrils closed. That's better. Oh, and your feet are wet. It's easy to catch cold when your body is chilly. You'd better go and see the school nurse. She'll help you. The nurse is examining Mary after her cold. 4 days at home with a cold keeps others from catching it and protects you from serious infections that follow colds.
Now, George, who sent you in here?
Miss May said I might be catching a cold.
Well, what do you think?
I'm hot and chilly.
Well, did you sleep pretty well last night, and did you feel like getting up this morning? Did your breakfast taste good?
I hardly had time to have my breakfast. I had an apple on the way.
Now, blow your nose, George. Oh, not so hard, gently. No pressure on the opening. Now, let's look at your throat. Open wide. All right, now you sit down, and I'll take her. You moisten your lips and hold it under your tongue. Oh, your feet are wet, too, George. Rebecca, 3, 2, 1. Hello, is it Mrs. Powell there? Yes. Well, this is Miss Wright, Mrs. Powell. George came in to see me a few moments ago with a cold. Yes, his throat is quite red and his feet are wet, too. I do think he'd be more comfortable at home in bed. Well, just a minute, please. Yes, his temperature is 99.8. Well, it is best to consult your physician if it goes over 100, especially during the cold season. Oh, that would be nice of you to call for him. Yes, he'll be right here in my office. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Joan's mother visits school to plan a health program. Joan must learn to take responsibility for keeping herself well. This weather chart keeps Joan alert to weather changes as she marks snowy or rainy days. Dressing this weather doll for outdoor weather helps Joan know what to wear herself. It will be better for Mother when Joan chooses wraps to suit the temperature instead of arguing about what friends wear. Mother and teacher check Joan's health habits. They plan better health practices for home and school. At school, Joan's committee keeps the washroom attractive with soap sponges, brushes, and signs. Others keep the closets neat with boxes for rubbers and hangers for clothes. Another records the temperature and tells us when we need heat or fresh air. One group keeps large drawing pencils scrubbed ready for use.
Those are jobs Joan and Jim could be learning to do at home, too. On Saturdays, they love to help us plan what we're going to do. I'm so glad to get this health record sheet. Your check on Joan's habits at school will help me plan a corrective health program at home. I'm going to find out what kind of health practices we use, and I must check on our equipment to see if we have the materials to carry on the school practices. Thank you for some grand ideas, Miss May. I'm going to visit school again some afternoon when I call for Joan. May I?
Do come often. It is good for teachers and children to have parents visit school.
Next morning, Joan's mother is inspecting the health materials in her home. Each one in the family needs a separate towel and washcloth. Mother has one for Jim and another for Joan, each with his own name. Joan's father made a box for her to stand on. It's no fun washing if you have to stretch or can't see into the basin. And here are new cups. Each can have his own cup now. It prevents catching another's cold. Why, Jim, why are you so cross? Father has taught Joan to spit into the toilet, for spitting spreads disease. Here are the spoons for your cod liver oil, Joan. It's extra sunshine for us in winter and spring. You know, strong bodies can't always keep us from catching cold, but they help us resist a serious illness that may follow colds. Keep away from persons with colds, and keep your hands clean while you're eating. Jim must wash his hands after he pets his dog, but he won't have to go upstairs, as Father has arranged a washstand downstairs, so Jim will remember to wash. What's the trouble with Jim? He didn't like his breakfast, and he was restless as he slept. He's cross and tired this morning. His throat isn't very red, but his eyes look queer. He'd better stay home today so that Mother can watch him and keep him warm. Joan's mother can't go to the kermis now, so Joan must take the paper bags for the party. Colds are easy to catch during the first 24 hours. Mother must see that Jim covers his coughs and stays away from others. She must sterilize his dishes by boiling them thoroughly in water. Joan's room at school is a busy place, and Joan wants to help get ready for the kermis. But first, she must wash her hands. We must always wash hands clean before handling food. So, Joan takes off her coat, uses plenty of soap and a good lather. She rinses her hands well and dries them thoroughly with a paper towel. In another room, the kindergarten children are getting ready for the kermis. It's best to go to the toilet and wash hands first. Now Joan has her wraps off, her hands are clean, and she's ready to pack the bags for the kermis. The kermis has started. George's friends are selling the flowers they raised. They learn that flowers, like children, need plenty of sunshine, water, good food, and moderate temperature to make them grow. Joan's friends are selling cheese, and they are careful to keep the food clean. Everyone is having a good time, while poor George stays in bed. His careless habits have made Jim miss the kermis, too, and Jim is restless in bed. Now he knows it pays to avoid people with colds. But Jim's friends are enjoying the kermis. They learn that Dutch people are clean. Hollanders leave their wooden shoes on their doorstep so that their floors are spotless. The Dutch drink milk and raise their own vegetables and flowers. They keep well. You have seen these children learning to take care of themselves. Now, do you know why George and Jim missed the kermis?
This is John Burke, class of 1940. This is Mary Burke, class of 1940. This is John Burke, Jr., class of 1966, according to the fond hopes of his parents. Someday, you may be in John Burke's shoes, or in Mary Burke's high-heeled slippers. What are you going to do or say when something like this takes place in your own household?
Mary, I forgot to tell you, Jim wasn't at the office today. He took Helen to the hospital.
Oh, that's fine. I guess they're both pretty excited. Do you think I should telephone the hospital?
Oh, Jim will call as soon as the baby is born.
I don't know which of them will be satisfied. I know Helen has a heart set on a girl.
And I know Jim has his heart set on a boy.
I can't wait. I'm going to telephone the hospital now.
Dad, how can Aunt Helen and Uncle Jim have a baby if they don't know what they want?
No, it doesn't matter, Johnny. They'll love their little baby, whether it's a boy or a girl.
Dad,
Yes?
where do babies come from anyhow?
Why, mothers bring them into the world.
But why do mothers bring them?
Johnny, by the grace of heaven, mothers are the only ones who know how to bring babies into the world.
That's right, Dad. Mothers do bring babies into the world. But sooner than you may think now, your child will be old enough for a full explanation. So let's brush up on it, you and I, and together review the human reproductive system. A model will help you review the fundamentals. The female sex organs, as seen from outside, consist of several folds of skin or tissue called the labia or lips. These labia cover the urethra through which urine is passed and the entrance to the vagina. Cutting through this model, these organs can be seen as they actually appear in vertical section through the midline. Here is the vagina. The vagina has a moist lining called the mucous membrane. Its walls lie in folds, which can be easily stretched. A membrane partly covers the entrance to the vagina. This is the hymen, or maidenhead. Its absence does not mean lack of virginity, since it may be accidentally broken during childhood. The uterus, shown here in a front view, is a small pear-shaped organ, normally only about half the size of a fist. Below it is the vagina. And connected to it at the top are two tubes, the fallopian tubes, and the two ovaries. In a section through these organs, we can see the cervix. This is the narrow neck of the uterus, and it extends into the vagina. The walls of the uterus are very thick, but may be stretched so that the uterus can enlarge to many times its original size during pregnancy. One end of the fallopian tube is open so that eggs or ova from the adjacent ovary may easily enter and be carried to the uterus. The ovary is a gland in which eggs are constantly being formed. Each almond-shaped ovary is about 1.5 inches in length. Besides producing eggs, these glands secrete fluids into the blood which are responsible for the development of female characteristics in other parts of the body, such as breasts, hair, and skin. But from puberty on, the primary function of the ovaries is the production of eggs. In a closer view, we can watch the development of an egg. Remember that while this one is growing, all the others are growing also, but usually only one egg reaches maturity every 28 days. After reaching full development, it breaks through the ovarian wall and passes into the fallopian tube. This breaking through of the egg is called ovulation. The fully developed egg is only 1/200th of an inch in diameter. When mature, each egg is capable, if fertilized, of developing into a baby. Moreover, each egg carries all of the hereditary characteristics of the mother. Since the function of the uterus is primarily that of receiving the fertilized egg and nourishing the developing child, the walls undergo a regular cycle of preparation for this job. The lining of the uterus becomes soft and spongy and engorged with blood and fluids. This progresses during the final stages of the development of the egg, its extrusion from the ovary, and its passage through the tube. If fertilization of the egg does not occur, the uterine wall lining breaks down and is discharged from the body as the menstrual flow. If we call this onset of menstruation the first day of the menstrual cycle, we can watch the various elements as they recur during each 28-day period. After the menstrual flow stops, about the 4th day, the uterine lining begins to build up again. Meanwhile, eggs are being formed in the ovaries. In the normal cycle, ovulation occurs about the 14th day, and an egg is extruded into the fallopian tube. It starts its slow passage toward the uterus, but if not fertilized, it dissolves away or disappears in the tube. After the 28th day, menstruation occurs again, and the cycle is repeated. This, then, is the structure and function of the female reproductive organs. The ovaries, which every 28 days discharge mature eggs into the fallopian tubes. The uterus, which during the same period gets ready to receive the egg in case it is fertilized by contact with the male sperm. If fertilization of the egg does not occur, the egg itself dissolves or disappears, and the uterine wall linings, now deprived of their special function to nourish the developing child, break down and are discharged as the menstrual flow. Although the average menstrual cycle usually occurs every 28 days, in many cases it may be somewhat longer or shorter. Because it depends on the proper functioning of many glands, its normal time schedule may be easily upset by nervous strain, emotion, or illness. The process is regularly repeated, however, every 28 days, unless fertilization of the egg occurs and pregnancy begins. These are the facts of the female reproductive system. This is the information which you, Dad, should clearly understand before you can pass on correct knowledge to your child when he is old enough to understand.
Daddy,
Yes?
why do babies have fathers?
Oh, there wouldn't be any babies without fathers.
But why?
Well, your child is inquisitive. One day you'll have to tell him why babies do have fathers. And that brings us to the next chapter in our review of the story of reproduction, the structure and function of the male reproductive organs. The external male reproductive organs, as shown in this drawing, consist of the penis and the scrotum. The scrotum contains the testicles. In a section view, we can see that the penis and testicles are connected by a long tube. This is the urethral canal. It extends from the penis back past the prostate gland and seminal vesicles to join the tube leading from the testicles. In this same diagram, we can see also the bladder, which empties into the urethral canal. The testicles in men correspond to the ovaries in women, because they both are glands in which the reproductive elements are formed. If we examine a section of the testicle, we find that it is composed of small compartments filled with two kinds of cells. One kind produces an internal secretion which is carried in the blood, and results in the development of male characteristics, such as skin, beard, voice, and body structure. The second, or lining cells, are constantly being changed into spermatozoa. Spermatozoa are the male sex cells. These spermatozoa, or sperm cells, are microscopic single cells, which are propelled by the lashing motion of their long tails. Like the ovum or egg of the female, each sperm cell contains all the hereditary characteristics which are passed from the father to the child. Spermatozoa are constantly being formed in the testicles and are stored in the mass of curled tubes seen here. If not emptied during sexual intercourse, they are periodically emptied during sleep in nocturnal emissions or wet dreams. Wet dreams are a perfectly normal body function, which is nature's way of getting rid of stored up sperm. Therefore, the common belief that intercourse or masturbation are necessary to relieve the pressure of stored up sperm is absolutely not true. Millions of spermatozoa are stored, ready for ejaculation. During intercourse, the penis is in a state of erection. This is caused by the spongy tissues of the penis becoming engorged with blood. The sperm passes up through the ducts where fluids from the glands are added to form the semen. The semen then flows through the urethral canal and is deposited into the female vagina. We return now to the female organs with the egg slowly moving through the tube. Male sperm are deposited at the upper end of the vagina near the cervix. They begin moving up into the uterus. Sperm may remain active here for several days. The sperm move into the tubes and approach the egg. In this diagram, both the egg and the spermatozoa are greatly enlarged in proportion to the size of the organs shown. Normally, fertilization takes place while the egg is in the tube. Here we can see this fertilization in closer view. After one spermatozoan enters the egg, no others enter. The tail drops off. The nuclei of sperm and egg merge and the development begins. The fertilized egg develops by first splitting into 2, then into 4, 8, and so on. From this fusion of a single egg and a single spermatozoan, the child develops. These early divisions take place while the fertilized egg is still moving through the tube. As you may recall, the uterine wall has, during this part of the menstrual cycle, been preparing to receive this egg. The wall is rich with blood and lymph from which the growing organism will draw its nourishment. Nesting of the egg against the uterine wall brings about many glandular actions. These first cause a cessation of menstruation, and then, during the course of the egg's development into a baby, produce the many secondary physical and physiological characteristics of pregnancy. After the first 2 weeks, this fertilized egg enters the embryo stage. The embryo itself lies along the inner margin of the yolk sac and is in turn connected by a stalk to the membrane through which food will be absorbed. At this time, the embryo is still almost microscopic in size, but the largest portion is the yolk sac, which provides early nourishment. The development of the embryo is an interesting and highly complex process. During the first 4 weeks, the embryo increases rapidly in size. The yolk sac becomes progressively smaller as it is absorbed, but the mechanism for feeding from the mother has in the meantime been developed. At the 4th week, buds have appeared where the limbs will develop, and the embryo has now taken definite form. During the next month, the limbs assume more specific shape, and the head becomes large as the brain develops. The fetus, as it is now called, resembles most other mammals at a similar stage of growth. During the 3rd and 4th months, the fetus develops all the human facial characteristics: the fingers and toes and the external sex organs. At the end of the 4th month, the fetus averages about 6 inches in length, and its heartbeat may be heard for the first time. Development from this point on is that of extensive growth and refinement of individual organs and tissues. Within the uterus, the child usually occupies this position. Here is the umbilical cord, which passes from the child to the placenta, commonly called the afterbirth. It is through this cord and placenta that nourishment is carried to the growing fetus from the 1st month to the day of its birth. In a closer view of this mechanism, we see that no direct connection exists between the circulatory system of the mother and that of the child. Food is carried in the mother's blood to the uterine wall. The placenta carries the bloodstream of the child to close contact with the uterine wall. By osmosis, food is carried across the spongy tissue from the mother to the child, while wastes from the child are similarly passed across to the bloodstream of the mother. This is the only contact between mother and child. There is no common bloodstream, as is frequently thought. As a matter of fact, all of the child's blood was formed within its own developing body. At full term, 9 months, the child has reached an average length of about 18 inches and an average weight of about 6 to 8 pounds. At this stage, the child is a completely developed living organism. The better you understand all of these facts, the better you will be prepared to discharge one of the greatest responsibilities of parenthood, the intelligent education of your child to the facts of human reproduction.
Daddy, why did Aunt Helen have to go to the hospital to have a baby?
Well, today most babies are born in hospitals.
Are they sick when they're born?
No, but mothers, in bringing babies into the world, need careful attention, and the hospital is the best place for that.
Right, Dad. But you also know that an expectant mother requires medical attention from the very beginning of pregnancy, because from this time on, marked physical changes take place in her body. Here we see first the normal female figure, showing the uterus and vagina. As pregnancy continues, the uterus becomes more distended, with corresponding changes in body contour. The stomach, intestines, liver, and other organs are pushed out of normal position. Posture is changed. You can also see the enlargement of the breasts in preparation for feeding the infant. Yet, as marked as these physical changes appear, they are only temporary. Shortly after childbirth, most of them will disappear. Here, in a closer view, we see the fully developed child just before birth, in the usual position for delivery. Here is the uterus, greatly extended, the cervix still unopened, the vagina, and the pelvic girdle formed by the hip bones through which the child will pass. All but the pelvic girdle are tissues which can easily stretch. During previous examinations, the physician has informed himself of the position of the child and the size of the pelvis. And now he awaits the expected body action. This begins with rhythmic contractions of the uterus. These contractions start at long intervals, but gradually become frequent. The greatest contractions occur at the upper end of the uterus, so that the pressure is directed toward the cervix. As the contractions become even more frequent, the cervix opens. The vagina stretches to permit passage of the child, And aided by contractions of the abdominal muscles, the child is brought into the world in a normal manner. This, then, is the story of reproduction. A story which any parent should fully understand, not only to ensure the arrival of a healthy child, but also to cope with the sensitive minds of children, your children, throughout successive stages in their constant search for knowledge. On your answers may well depend the physical and emotional health of future generations.
I just phoned the hospital. They've had twin boys.
Twins, eh? Well, poor Jim.
What do you mean, poor Jim?
I'm just thinking of all the questions he's going to have to answer.
It's fun to eat supper with your family, especially when there is good food on the table. Strong, healthy bodies. They are good foods to eat. Father is certainly enjoying his supper. So is Carol. So is Mother. Just look at that plate. Aren't you feeling well, Bill? Aren't you hungry? What can be the matter? After supper, it's fun to play a while before bed. But there's still something wrong, isn't there, Bill? In a moment, you'll know what it is. Yes, Bill, you're getting a stomachache. When you have a stomachache, it isn't any fun to play. There it is again. Poor Bill. What now? We'll soon know, because here comes Mother. Mother can tell right away that Bill isn't feeling well. So, what happens next? Yes, Bill's put to bed to get some rest. Now, why does Bill have a stomachache? He didn't eat anything bad today, did he? Well, perhaps it wasn't what he ate, but the way he ate it. Why, even this morning, Mother was a little worried. Let's go back to this morning and see how Bill's stomachache might have happened. Bill wasn't at breakfast on time this morning. You see, he didn't get up when Father first called him. Oh, Bill got to the table, and he ate his breakfast, or rather, part of it. Orange juice, one big gulp of it. Milk for the cereal, splash it on. No time to waste. Gobble down the cereal, a couple of big spoonfuls, one right after the other. But leave most of it. Now for the eggs. More good, healthful food. But what about Bill's eating habits? Into his mouth went some egg. Right away, a big bite of toast. And there was some bacon, so he stuffed in part of that. And then, just one big splash of milk. And Bill was off to school. Well, he caught up with his family, and he beat them through breakfast. But he ate so fast. And do you think he ate enough? At lunchtime, Bill had some fine sandwiches. He also had money to buy soup. But he didn't want to stand in line for soup. He was in a hurry to go out and play. So, how did Bill eat his lunch? Watch. After school, of course, Bill was hungry. He was hungry, and he had some money. So, but did Bill leave his pop and candy only half eaten? No, sir. He emptied that pop bottle as fast as he could. He gobbled down all his candy. And, as if that wasn't enough, he ate some cookies, too. Then Bill didn't feel hungry anymore. No, sir. For once, he had eaten too much. At supper time, Bill still felt full. So he didn't hurry with his supper. He just poked at it. He was tired. And he just didn't have any appetite. Bill didn't know it, but he was already beginning to be sick. Well, Bill, now you know what might have caused your stomach ache. Why you feel so bad. Why you'll have to stay in bed until you feel better. You see, you hurried so all day long. You rushed through your meals and didn't eat enough good food. And then, in the afternoon, all those sweets. They filled your stomach and didn't leave room for any of the foods you need. In fact, Bill, you mistreated your stomach all day long. No wonder you have a stomach ache. How is it this morning, Bill? Feel better? Think you know now about good eating habits? Downstairs in time for breakfast. Give yourself time to eat a good breakfast. Let's see how well you can eat. That's right. Drink your juice a little at a time. Doesn't it taste good? You just never took time before to find how good food can taste. Mother's pleased and proud. We're off to a good start this morning. But will it last? Will you remember to eat the right way? Uh-oh, almost washed your food down. Before you take a drink, chew your food well and swallow it. Now you're eating pretty well. Will you do as well with the bacon and eggs and toast? Chew your toast thoroughly. That's the way. Chew and chew. Doesn't it taste extra good that way? What about that bacon? Well, maybe there are better ways to cut it. But when you eat it in small bits, you can chew it better. It tastes so good, you want to eat every bite. Breakfast is more fun this way, isn't it? Well, Bill, plenty of time to get to school today. And in class, studying seems easier. What? 11 o'clock? Usually you're mighty hungry by this time. Today, you feel fine. Lunchtime is another time to practice good eating habits. Eat slowly and chew thoroughly. Finish all your food. Later on, drink lots of water. After school, that's the idea, Bill. A good snack of crackers and milk at home. That's the good kind of food if you're hungry after school. And then play. hard play. Plenty of pep now. Yesterday's stomach ache is forgotten. At supper time, you're hungry again. Everything tastes good, and you're eating well. See what good eating habits can do for you? Looking for seconds. After supper, you feel fine. No stomach ache, not too tired, not hungry. Just feeling fine. And that
I hope you got something good to eat tonight. Hi, Mom. The coach really gave us a workout. And, oh, boy, ham! I'm so hungry I could eat a neutral and see what he gave us to do.
Chuck.
Huh?
Could you serve yourself in a less athletic manner?
Oh. Is this better?
Chuck. At least you could manage to be on time. After your mother goes to all the trouble to prepare a fine meal, it's only common courtesy, Chuck.
I know, but I couldn't help it. I was late home from school.
Never mind. He did wash up and brush his hair. By the way, Chuck, I saw Barbara's mother downtown. That's quite a supper party she's planning.
Is it this Friday?
I'm not going.
Why not?
Do I have to have a reason?
But all your friends will be there.
Carl, I'm not going.
Chuck! Don't talk with your mouth full.
Good night, Chuck.
Good night. Have a good time.
Thank you, Chuck.
Night,
Good night.
Dad. Oh, who wants to go to a supper party?
You do, Chuck.
Huh? Who are you?
We're looking into the future, Chuck. I am the young man you are going to be in a few short years.
Well, if you say so.
And take it from me, when we're my age, we won't be turning down invitations.
Oh, maybe not.
Tell me, why aren't you going?
I don't know.
I do. You're worried about not doing the right thing. Your table manners.
Now you're talking like Mom and Dad.
Look, you may not care much about table manners now, but when you grow up to be me, then you'll care.
But why? Why does it matter?
For several reasons. Look, maybe I can show you. Let's imagine the family at dinner with nobody minding his manners. Not very pretty, is it? Each person busy feeding his face, showing no consideration for the others. People become irritated, angry. No one can enjoy a meal like this. No. Mealtime is a time for pleasure and relaxation. It's the best opportunity the family has to talk together, exchange bits of news, make plans. When everybody eats properly, the meal goes better, and everybody has more fun. What's more, when we relax and enjoy ourselves, we digest our food better. And ask your doctor if that isn't important to your health. But there's more.
What's that?
How long now before you'll be going out to make your own way in the world?
Not very long, I guess.
And whatever you do, wherever you go, you'll want to put your best foot forward. Here, let's try another trick. Let's change that to a table in a restaurant. You're taking a girl out to dinner. To make a good impression, you must know what to do. Who seats the girl? When you sit? How to order your meal? Of course, the girl wants to know these things too, in order to show herself at her best. Then you must know how to eat your meal. And the only way to have good table manners when you want them is to practice them regularly at home. Get in the habit of eating properly, so it just comes naturally. Or take another case. Say you're having lunch with your boss. Say he's thinking about somebody to fill a good position that's opening up. Well, put yourself in the boss's place. Would you give the job to a fellow like this? Or to a fellow who thinks that table manners are silly? You see what I mean about putting your best foot forward? Table manners are important because people judge many things about you just by the way you eat.
All right, maybe so, but it's all so complicated.
Is it? Look, there's nobody here. Let's try it out.
What do you mean?
Come on. Besides, that supper party sounds good. If we know what to do, I think we'll want to go.
Well...
Look sharp now. There. There is a place setting properly arranged.
It looks all right, but what am I supposed to do? That's the question.
Well, what would you do if you sat down to dinner and found 3 forks, like this?
I'd probably end up with one left over and wonder what I did wrong.
Not if you remember one simple rule. Always use silverware from the outside in. So, starting from the outside, use this for your salad, this for your main course, and this...
Why, that one must be for the dessert.
You see? It's easy.
But there's something funny here. Doesn't the butter knife belong here?
Well, the book says either place. And speaking of the book, it wouldn't hurt you to use one sometime and check up on any points that you're not sure of.
Sure, we have some books in school, but I'll have to be careful who sees me reading it.
Don't worry, you can manage that. And now to use these things. Let's have some food. Say, it's too bad you've just eaten.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Things will be easier if you'll remember that in eating, there are 3 kinds of food. Finger foods, fork foods, and spoon foods. Now, clean, dry foods, bread is one of them, are finger foods. But when you have something that's messy or sticky, you better use a fork.
Yeah, like a cream puff?
That's the idea. Now, fork foods include meats, potatoes, vegetables, salads, and many others. There's a right way to hold a fork, and this is it. Don't put onto your fork any more than 1 mouthful of food. Oh yes, after you've placed food on your fork, if you decide to talk, lay it down until you're ready to eat. It looks better. And this is the way to park a fork, after you've used it.
Not propped up on the edge of the plate, huh?
That's the idea. Here, now you try it.
Okay.
Now with some fork foods, we need a knife. Let's see how you use it.
The folks say I do it wrong.
Hey, that's not only the wrong way, it's the hard way. Here, try this. Put the ends of both the handles in the palms of your hands, like that. Hold the meat with your fork and cut the meat. Don't tear it apart.
Say, this is better.
You see? Good table manners are just common sense.
Is that right?
Yes, that's the way most people in America handle their knife and fork. We don't have to worry with the European method. But now, after you've finished eating...
I have.
You place your knife and fork this way to show that you have finished.
But what about spoon foods?
Oh, yes. All right. How do you manage soup?
Hi, you don't fool me on this one. You never tip the bowl, and you dip the soup away from you. Not too much in the spoon, and you eat from the side of the spoon.
Precisely. And now, would you care for some turnips?
Oh, turnips. You know I can't bear... no, thank you.
That's the idea, Chuck. Courtesy, consideration for others, common sense. That's what table manners are.
You mean that's all there is to table manners, just what we've talked about?
Oh, no. But you already know a great deal. And you can learn still more by watching Mother and Dad and other people who have good manners. But the main thing is...
The main thing is to practice at home so that table manners will come naturally and I won't have to think about them when I'm out.
You can't miss. Oh, let's stew the dishes.
Mother should see that.
Well, Chuck, are we going to that party?
Sure we are. We are?
That's right, Chuck. We are going to the party. You can't see me any longer, but remember, I'm the fellow you're going to be. So I'm interested in seeing that you always make a good impression. This really isn't hard, is it? You know what to do. That's right. Ladies first into the dining room. And now what? Right again. Find your place and remain standing.
Were you in science when the white mice got loose?
Oh, I remember that.
You see, Chuck, it's easy to do the right thing if you remember courtesy, consideration of others, and common sense.
You didn't have to get up on the table.
Goodness, they were about this small, but
Oh, it was good.
And also remember, you're here not to see how much or how fast you can eat, but to have a good time.
Yeah.
Well, our boy is doing all right. Don't you think so? Don't you think you can do the same?
Here it is at last, the night of the party that everyone's been looking forward to for weeks. That's Betty Brand at the piano. She's the kind of girl who puts life in a party. And here are Jimmy and Sue and Jean and the rest of the gang. They seem to be having a wonderful time. Over here are the ones who'd rather talk than play. And oh yes, here is Adrienne. Adrienne, who usually sits all alone, slumped in her chair in the corner. Adrienne knows that for some reason she doesn't fit into the picture, but she doesn't know why. Her party dress is just as pretty, just as becoming as the clothing the others are wearing. And Adrienne has a sense of humor. She can laugh right along with the others when she knows what it is they're laughing about. But why do they sometimes laugh for no good reason? What is it that creates this unfavorable impression the others have of her? There's a mirror, Adrienne. Go on, look at yourself. See if you can discover what it is. Your face is all right, Adrienne. You're neat and clean and healthy looking. You're neither too fat nor too thin. Why, there's nothing wrong with the way you look. What in the world? The mirror's gone crazy. You hold one hand up, it holds the other one down. Who ever heard of a mirror like this?
Now look here, you. You're supposed to do what I do. You're supposed to show me how I look. No, you listen to me for a change. For years, I've never had a motion of my own. I've just done exactly what you do when you're in front of me. But I'm tired of helping you pretend. I can't show you how you really look because when you're around me, you put on an act. You smile your best smile and you stand up straight. I've always had to show you how you thought you looked. Do you want to see how you really look, Adrienne? This is it. Your head pokes forward, your shoulders slump, your stomach. Well, take a look.
Yes, Adrienne, the mirror may have gone crazy, but for the first time, it's telling you the truth. Like a lot of boys and girls, your posture is your problem. What are you going to do about it?
I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to make you reflect what I want to see, because I'm going to have good posture. You just wait and see. Atta girl, Adrienne.
Yes, Adrienne, you have just taken the most important step toward good posture, wanting to have it. But determination isn't always enough. What is good posture? How can you make it a habit? Maybe you'd better ask someone for help. Your friend Tom? No, his posture is not much better than yours. The best person to ask might be Mr. Riley, your science teacher. He has been teaching you some other things about health, Maybe he can give you some pointers about posture. When you and Tom tell Mr. Riley about your problem, he agrees that posture is important to all young people. So important that he will ask Dr. Martin to come to class to talk with you about it. Dr. Martin is not concerned with how poor posture makes you look to other people. He talks about what good posture means to your health. In the first place, poor posture may be a sign of something wrong with you. You may be run down physically, or overtired, or upset. You need a thorough checkup by your family doctor to discover the cause of your posture defects. Even if your poor posture is only a matter of careless habits, you should see a doctor before you start corrective measures. You see, our skeletons and muscles are designed to support our vital organs so that they can do their best work. If we sag, these organs are pushed out of their proper positions. The muscles are stretched, too, under a strain which they were not designed to take. Stretched muscles and displaced organs tire more quickly and work less efficiently. The health of the whole body is affected. And here's where habit comes in. If you usually slump when you're sitting or walking, as this boy does, your body will accustom itself to poor posture so that it actually becomes difficult for you to sit up tall or walk correctly. To develop good posture habits, the kind this girl has, there are several things you must do. First, exercise. Go in for active, stretching, bending games which will build good, hard muscles to help hold your body in line. Work will do it too. Any activity which takes balancing or stretching is good for developing the muscles of your shoulders and chest. Spend some time every day working or playing vigorously. To have good posture, get enough exercise. But wait a minute. If you work or play too hard for too long a time, you'll become overtired. It's easy to slump when your muscles are tired. So get enough rest, too. Take time out to relax when you get home from school or any time you feel tired. If you rest for a while before dinner, you'll feel more like sitting up straight at the table. Go to bed early enough to get plenty of sleep, and sleep on a firm mattress which will support your weight without sagging. Remember, to have good posture, you must have enough rest. Your shoes are important to your posture, too. Choose new shoes for comfort and good workmanship. Your shoes should be long enough and wide enough to allow your feet action room and sturdily made to give your foot complete protection and support. Wear the proper shoes. The foundation of good posture is in your feet. Make it a strong foundation. Yes, Adrienne, Dr. Martin has given you and your classmates a new idea of the importance of good posture. You know now how important it is to your health. He has pointed out 3 important ways a healthy person can develop what it takes for good posture. Boys and girls must eat foods which help keep them well. Only a healthy body can respond to the training which makes good posture a habit. Fortunately, most of you have good health. You're all set to train your body in good posture habits. But what is good posture? Is it the ramrod stiffness of a parade marcher? No. Good standing posture is a comfortable, easy position, such that a straight line could be drawn from your ear through your shoulder, the center of your hip, and your ankle. When you stand and walk with your body in a straight line, you don't have to throw out your chest, and your stomach flattens out naturally. Good sitting posture means sitting with your head directly above your hips, with your hips and back against the chair. Your feet should be flat on the floor. That's all there is to it, Adrienne. It seems easy, doesn't it? But it's not as easy as it looks. You can't expect to correct posture defects overnight. You'll have to find out from your doctor which exercises will help you the most, and then practice those exercises regularly. Your teachers and your parents will give you encouragement, but the standing tall and walking tall are up to you. You and Tom already have the will for good posture. Now you know the ways. If both of you practice good posture until it's second nature, well, Tom is going to have a set of habits that can make him look better and feel better all of his life. But you, Adrienne, you can not only do good things for your health, but before too long you can walk right up to that crazy mirror in your room, and this time the mirror will be surprised. You will have the last laugh. And what is more important, you'll know that you can be proud of your posture.
Right now, at this very moment, as you watch these light rays striking the magnified eye, similar tiny beams of light are entering your own eyes. And it's by our eyes that we are able to gain a great part of our knowledge. Nature has located the eye close to the brain so that its messages may arrive there quickly. Nature has also provided ample protection for this very delicate organ. Here, with the outer coverings removed, we see the eyeball completely surrounded by a layer of soft, fatty tissue and placed within the bony orbit, where it lies protected against sudden jolts. Seen from the side, the protected position of the eyeball within its funnel-shaped eye socket is shown still more clearly. Once again, we see the fatty cushion which protects it on all sides. Note this white stalk, which is the optic nerve, and also these muscles, which move the eyeball. This is the empty eye socket within the skull, with its bony walls inside and the rim of the bony orbit in front. By gradually restoring the outer portions of the skull and also the covering tissues, we can now realize the location of the entire eye in relation to the outline of the face. Another important safeguard to the eye is the tear gland, which secretes the tear fluid. This is an effective germicide which drains through the tear ducts into the nose after flushing and cleaning the entire eye surface. The eyeball itself has a white, glistening surface. Its front part bulges and forms a highly transparent window. In this sectional view, the capsule of the eyeball is seen to have 3 layers. This thick, tough outer layer is called the sclera and serves to protect the delicate structures within. This transparent bulging portion is called the cornea. Notice also the crystalline lens, which is one of the main features of the eye mechanism. The second layer is called the choroid. It consists of 3 different belts or zones. The first zone is called the choroid proper and is the part that carries nourishment to the tissues of the eye. The next zone is called the ciliary body. This is a broad ring-shaped band of thin muscle fibers which play a very active and vital part in the visual adjustment of the eye. The third zone is the well-known iris, which expands and contracts the pupil much like the diaphragm of a camera. The iris will soon be described in greater detail. Here is an outside view of the entire choroid, which shows the dense network of arteries and veins carrying nourishment to the eyeball. You can also see the shape of the ciliary body and the iris. The innermost layer of the eyeball is the retina, a very delicate membrane. The retina is actually a part of the optic nerve which transmits the light impulses to our brain. The retina is the most important and complex structure in the eyeball. Magnified many hundred times, the retina is seen to consist of this complicated arrangement of rods and cones, which convert light waves into nerve impulses in some manner which even science of today cannot fully explain. Between the lens and the cornea is the aqueous humor, consisting mostly of water and a little salt. This larger space within the eye is filled with the vitreous humor or body, consisting chiefly of water with some salt and albumin. The vitreous humor is really a highly transparent jelly and plays a very important part in the act of visual adjustment. Thus, light rays entering the eye must pass in succession through first the cornea, second the aqueous humor, third the pupil, fourth the crystalline lens, and fifth the vitreous humor in order to reach their destination, the retina. Now, just how do light rays act to form a clear picture within the eye? First, let us realize that light rays reflected from any object radiate in all directions, and that as an object moves farther away from us, the angle between the rays that enter our eyes grows smaller and smaller. And finally, when the object has reached a distance of 15 feet or more, the rays entering our eyes are practically parallel. Now, nature has provided that parallel rays shall produce a sharp image upon the retina without any effort, and, as one may say, with the eye in a state of complete relaxation. But if a distant object approaches the eye, the angle between entering rays again grows larger. This increasing angle changes the direction of the light rays as they pass through the lens, so that the sharp image falls behind the retina. As a result, the image upon the retina tends to become blurred. This blurring causes a response or reflex within our brain, which brings about harmonious internal adjustments of all parts of the eye. This adjustment is called accommodation. Accommodation restores the sharply focused image with marvelous speed and accuracy. This is all the more remarkable because the distance between lens and retina is fixed, and the lens itself must change its shape. Now compare this with the focal adjustment of a camera. Here the lens remains unchanged, but the film itself is moved until it reaches a sharp focal image. It is also necessary that both our eyes be fixed upon the same point in order that we may see an object clearly. Thus, as an object approaches us from a distance, our eyeballs turn accordingly. This movement is called the convergence of visual axes. This action is shown here as the object approaches and recedes. Here, in addition, we see the lenses accommodating their optical shape under the combined influence of blurred image and eyeball movement. And now let us look at this highly enlarged view of the lens itself. It has a soft, yielding body and is as transparent as glass. But it also has a firm, ball-shaped central core or nucleus. It is contained within a thin, elastic membrane and is suspended all around by a spoke-like arrangement of delicate threads or ligaments. The lens itself lies between two liquids. These liquids can exert pressure. All liquids cannot be compressed. You may ask then, how is this soft, pliable body of the lens made to take on the different degrees of convexity necessary for accommodation? In order to explain this, let us again call attention to the important ciliary muscle, which we see here in the diagram. This muscle is shaped like a broad ring which can expand and contract. Whenever it does contract, it must press upon the non-elastic vitreous humor. This liquid is confined within the rigid capsule of the eyeball and must, therefore, exert pressure upon the lens. Now, the lens as a whole cannot give way against the equally non-elastic aqueous humor and its confining cornea. So the only part which can possibly yield to the pressure of the vitreous humor, or body, is the soft substance of the lens. This lens substance is thus molded into an even curve against the rigid ball-shaped core, thus forming this highly convex bulge, which science has called lenticonus. So whenever the image upon the retina becomes blurred, the brain automatically causes the ciliary muscle to contract or to relax until the lens has attained just the right shape to restore a sharply defined image upon the retina. This is the remaining portion of the choroid, called the iris, with its central opening, the pupil. Like the diaphragm of a camera, the iris regulates the amount of light and sharpens the image upon the retina. The iris acts automatically, and so is an important link in the process of accommodation. Its action is caused by two sets of delicate muscle fibers within the iris itself. These muscles are shown here in simplified diagram. These spoke-like radial fibers pull the pupil open. This ring-shaped muscle around the pupil closes it. In this side view, we see the opening and closing of the pupil, so that we may more clearly understand another important part played by the iris. Whenever demanded by conditions, the lens acquires this peculiar bulge called lenticonus. This cone-shaped curve at first causes light rays to become distorted into aberrations upon the retina. As a result of these distortions, the pupil now contracts until the diffused rays have been shut away and only a clear image remains upon the retina. These interesting mechanics of the lens are not generally known, and the facts presented here have only recently been accepted by science. It is well for us to know that our eyes are one of our greatest gifts of nature and are indeed worthy of our constant care and protection.
Joe called. He said he'd be a little late. Say, do you look smooth?
Why, thank you, sir. You look mighty elegant yourself, if I may say so.
Yes, indeed. Both Don and Sue look like the kind of people you'd like to know, don't they? Of course, right now, they're dressed for their Friday dates. But don't you have the feeling that they're always well groomed?
Yes, and that's no accident. For Don and Sue, the question, how do I look, depends on good grooming habits. Health, posture, cleanliness, and neatness, plus a daily routine of little finishing touches. Take last night, for example. On weeknights when there are no dates, plenty of time to do little things that make for a well-groomed appearance.
Hey, sis, haven't you finished with that iron yet?
You can have it in just a minute. Haven't you got anything else to do? Don, what are you doing in my sewing box?
Well, there's a loose button here.
Oh, all right, I'll fix it for you. That is, if you polish my shoes.
Well, I guess it's a deal. I have to polish my own. I might as well.
Aw, thanks.
Clothes pressed and mended, shoes polished. These are a few of the habits with which Don and Sue keep neat. And neatness is one of the fundamentals of grooming. So here's part of your big question, how do I look? Are my clothes neat and clean? Whether you do your own or achieve it by cooperative efforts, keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
And cleanliness and neatness apply to you as well as to your clothes. So after a cleansing, relaxing bath, that's a good daily habit, Sue has a regular routine. And planned time, too, for the finishing touches, doing your nails, brushing your hair, and so on. Sue avoids red nail polish since it would call attention to her stubby hands. A clear polish keeps her nails sparkling. Once a week, Sue gives herself a complete manicure. Then daily care of her nails is easy. In the same way, regular shampoos and daily brushing keep her hair clean and glossy. And these finishing touches that add so much to Sue's cleanliness and neatness all fit into a simple schedule of daily activities. And now for at least 8 hours of sleep. Good health is the rule, for health is one of the foundations of your appearance.
Leave some hot water for me. And hurry, I'll have to shave.
All right, Don.
What to wear? The weather has something to do with your choice of clothes. But Don also thinks of other things. Most of his clothes are clean and pressed, so he's not as limited in selection. How about these slacks and this shirt? What do you think? How will Don look in this combination?
Let's hope he'll pay a little attention to patterns and colors.
How about this combination?
That's better. Now a tie to go with the outfit and Don's all set.
Don is putting one more finishing touch to his appearance. A well-matched outfit of clothes. How will he look?
Good enough in that outfit.
And now another little habit of cleanliness and neatness. Dirt under your fingernails must be cleaned every day, and it's better in private.
All right, Don, you're next.
Now for a cleansing morning shower.
Meanwhile, Sue gives thought to the day. What will she wear? That depends on her activities, of course. For school, choose comfortable, not too dressy clothes. Perhaps a skirt and a blouse to go with it. But what about these two blouses? Which is more appropriate for school? Which goes with the skirt?
Fellows like to see girls dress up, but in general only for a special occasion.
Yes, choose clothes that are suitable to your needs and situation. But remember that any clothes look better with good posture. Now that her clothes are selected, Sue is ready to fix her hair. What to do with those curls she so carefully put in last night? It doesn't matter just what hairstyle you use, as long as it looks right on you. Upswept? Loosely over the shoulders. Just be sure your hairdo suits you and that your hair is neatly in place.
And here's something else for your appearance. Eat a hearty, balanced breakfast. There's nothing like wholesome food to help keep you in good health.
And that means a clearer complexion, shining eyes, glossy hair.
In short, that means a better appearance. Don's all set to look right at school, isn't he?
Mother, too, keeps a good appearance, even around the house, for that keeps up her spirits.
And Father dresses according to his work, relying on cleanliness and neatness as the foundations of his appearance. So, for each individual, the finishing touches of appearance may be his or hers alone, suited to individual needs, actions, ideas.
After breakfast, Sue goes back to her room for some finishing touches. Her makeup. Her powder is one that blends with her natural coloring. She pats it on lightly, then carefully smooths it over her face.
And be careful when it comes to lipstick.
Yes. Choose a shade that goes with your own coloring and sets off your clothes to advantage. Then, easy does it. Now smooth out gently and wipe off any excess to leave only a smooth film of color, following the lines of your own lips. And finally, a last-minute once-over in the mirror. Make sure your hemline is even. Don't let your slip show.
Come on, we'll be late. Oh, boy, at the mirror again.
Well, the mirror could help you check your clothes, too, and improve your posture.
Oh, trouser cuff. Thanks. And I could straighten up, couldn't I? Well, let's hurry, or we'll be late.
Cultivate such habits as cleanliness and neatness, so you'll be well groomed.
For all through the day, others are looking at you. Your mirror tells you what others see. How do you look? How does Sue look?
How does Don look?
Health, posture, cleanliness, neatness. These grooming habits form the basis of a good appearance and a well-planned outfit of clothes, well cared for hands and nails, light touches of makeup, a becoming hairdo.
Oh, Sue, where are you?
In my room, Don.
Joe called. He said he'd be a little late. Say, do you look smooth?
Well, thank you, sir. You look mighty elegant yourself.
Uh-oh, this is where we came in.
And this is where Don and Sue go out for a pleasant evening. Their good grooming habits help them in friendships and in business. For your success depends a great deal on how you look.
I really don't think I'll ever learn to type 10 words a minute. No sort of record for me. What are you going to do tonight? Well, I don't know.
June.
Hello, Mary.
You're right on time. Just a minute. I'll see if Mr. Adams is busy. Go right in.
Thanks.
Good morning, June.
Good morning, Mr. Adams.
Won't you sit down?
Thank you. I was glad to get your note. My program for next semester has been bothering me.
What have you planned to take?
Well, you know how much I like my work in the commercial department. I thought perhaps I should cancel history and physics. I don't really need them, and take office practice and advanced dictation. I want to become a stenographer.
Yes, that sounds like a reasonable plan. But what do you think stenographers do to earn a living? Have you actually visualized yourself in a secretarial position? What do you think the work would be like?
Yes, I think I have an idea. If I were doing stenographic work in an office, I imagine I would.
Inform you that we can only pick it up. More or less.
If I don't get an opportunity to call him this afternoon, I will inform him very shortly.
You'll hear from me.
I'll have dinner with him.
I would do routine typing and form letters, check the work of others, and retype copy. I'd work regular hours, learn to handle new materials and duties, and do the work expected of me.
You don't hear from me, it would be impossible to make a definite promise to you as to how soon we can get that information.
I'd suggest to take these files and hold them for a few days until the...
Of course, Mr. Adams, there are monotonous jobs such as filing, but all clerical workers must do these things.
Jones, I think I'll have to call you back as soon as I can get that information out of our file.
And that's my idea of stenographic work, Mr. Adams.
Yes, that's clerical work. But aren't there other types of clerical work that require more training, more skill, and further education? Perhaps in your case, June, it might be well to think beyond mere routine typing and filing and shorthand.
But we don't have such courses at Westport High School. Where could I get training for other kinds of clerical work? And what other types of office jobs are there?
Well, suppose we see if we can find the answers to your question. Let's see if Miss Harrison of the commercial department can help us get the information we need.
All right.
Miss Harrison, you're going into the city this afternoon, aren't you?
Yes, I am, Mr. Adams.
If June can be excused from classes, I wonder if you take her to Messon's office so that she can see some examples of really advanced clerical work.
Why, I think so. Miss Harrison, do you suppose I could talk with one of the private secretaries who works for a top executive?
Why, I'm sure that can be arranged with an acquaintance of mine who is a secretary. I'll call and make an appointment with her, June. I'm leaving on the 1:40 bus. Can you be ready then?
Yes, I can, and thank you.
Surely.
Good morning, Messens Incorporated.
Goodbye.
Good morning, Messens Incorporated. Good morning, Mr. Benson. Yes, he is. Just a moment, please. There you are. Good morning, Messens Incorporated. Yes. All right. Would you like to talk to him? Mr. Peterson's calling. Good morning, Messens Incorporated. Good morning, Messens Incorporated. Yes, hold the line there, please. Is there anything I can help you with?
Yes, I have a telephone appointment with Miss Lee. Would you please tell her that Miss Harrison and Miss Woods are here?
Miss Lee is expecting you. You can go right in. It's the first door on the left down the corridor.
Thank you.
Good morning, Messens Incorporated. Yes, hold the line there, please.
Because this affair has so many ramifications, Mr. Messon thinks it would be easier for everyone if a meeting could be arranged. Oh, hello, Miss Harrison. Come on in, won't you?
Hello, Miss Lee.
And this is the young lady.
Yes, this is June Woods, whom I talked to you about this morning. How do you do, Miss
How do you
Lee?
do?
I'd like to have her see how a real business office operates.
I'm very glad to help her. In fact, I've arranged so that we can spend the next hour together. Won't you sit down, please?
Well, thank you, but I have some important calls to make. You'll have to excuse me this time. I'll be back in about an hour.
All right, Miss Harrison.
Goodbye.
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 I'd like to have you see the routine clerical department first. Many of our girls begin their work with us in this following department after graduating from high school.
Miss Lee is explaining to June the system employed in the filing department. It is necessary to have supervisors to direct the girls, as some of the work is not so simple, although all of the girls are high school graduates and have had some training in accuracy and speed. Employers depend greatly on the recommendations of counselors and teachers, as the applicant's school grades are also very important in obtaining a job. In the stenographic department, some of the girls are transcribing shorthand notes, and others are doing routine typing, such as form letters that can't be duplicated, making copies when several carbons are needed, and cutting stencils for duplicating machines. The average typist has had a year or two of training beyond high school, and many of them are from junior college commercial departments. 70 words a minute is considered good typing speed. However, it is not uncommon to find typists who can do 90 words per minute or more. Depending upon the ability and alertness of the individual, these girls will become proficient stenographers and gain promotion to different departments as their experience becomes greater. The duplicating department is a busy one. This machine is electrically operated and used for short runs, reproduction of drawings, drafts, and the employee's weekly newspaper. Also, manually operated machines of the same type are used. For work requiring hundreds of copies, this duplicating machine is used. Training for the operation of these machines is obtained either at special commercial schools at night or gained while employed in this department. It is not uncommon to find men doing this type of work. However, girls are preferred on routine jobs which require speed and accuracy. There is still a bookkeeping department, but it looks as though the girls are in a hurry to get back to Miss Lee's office.
And I'm still amazed at the amount of ability a girl needs to do many of these jobs. Let's sit down, shall we? Thank you. What about your own job, Miss Lee? You're an office manager as well as head secretary, aren't you?
Yes. One of my most important duties is to make appointments with the president. It takes judgment to tell which caller should be given 15 minutes and which one should take his problems to someone else in the firm. Sometimes it takes every ounce of tact I can muster to keep everyone contented. Another important job of mine is to read and abstract materials from contracts and papers so that the president can tell in a moment whether he needs to do any more research before making a business decision. My college training has proved its importance in this work. Are you planning to go to college?
Oh, I've thought about it. Dad said he would help me, but I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm going to talk to Mr. Adams about it tomorrow.
Excuse me, please. Miss Lee? Yes, Mr. Messon. Right away.
Well, I see that you're busy and I shan't take any more of your time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Goodbye. And good luck.
Well, June, did you have a good time on your trip to Messon's office yesterday?
Yes, I did. But, Mr. Adams, do you think I could make a go of it?
Now, why do you ask that?
Well, I talked to Miss Lee, who has just the kind of a job I'd like someday, and she said that it was necessary to have college training for that job. So I've talked to Mother and Father, and they think that I might go to college. Do you think I should?
Before I answer your question, suppose we take a look at your experience and record. Then you and I can think through to an answer. Your high score on the Scholastic Aptitude Test indicates that you can do good work in college. Moreover, your high score on the Clerical Aptitude Test indicates that you can become a good secretary.
Mr. Adams, does that definitely mean that I'm capable of doing good work in college?
Yes, June. You have the fundamental ability to do good work in college. Moreover, your fine record in school shows that you use that ability efficiently.
I think that I'm genuinely interested in secretarial work, and I'm more confident of my interest after talking to Miss Lee. But some of my classmates tell me that their vocational interests have changed. I'm afraid that I may change, too.
Your interests may change, June, as you grow more mature and acquire new experiences. But on our test of vocational interests, Your likes and dislikes are similar to those of successful women in secretarial occupations. I would say that your choice of secretarial work is a good one, and that you will most likely continue to be interested. However, you must remember that you will have to start at the bottom and work up to that position. You realize from your visit with Miss Lee, of course, that there are many, many ways in which you can use your interest in commercial occupations. Later on, you may even wish to shift to some other line of work. You should not worry about the narrow, specific type of job until you've had 2-3 years more of further training.
But, Mr. Adams, Miss Lee stressed, and I saw for myself, the girls in offices work closely with each other and must be well-liked. Do you think that I have the personality for that type of work?
Suppose you tell me what things you have done with other people. What activities have you been participating in school?
I've been in so many things. I'm secretary of the freshman class. I was elected president of my campfire group. Last month I read and prepared an article on the American Indian before the School Historical Society. For the past 3 years I've been social chairman in my church. And last summer I was cabin leader at camp. Mother says I'm in too many things.
Well, that would certainly seem to indicate the right kind of personality for getting along with persons of your own age. Have you worked with older persons?
You remember that I did some work in a law office last summer. The people there liked my work and were very pleasant and nice to me, but I don't know whether that means much.
Oh, yes, it does. That's fine. I can't predict with certainty just how your personality may develop. But what you say points to the likelihood that you will continue to be sociable and cooperative. There's one other question that I wanted to ask you. What about financial support? Will you be able to get further training?
I was talking with Father last night, and he said that he would be able to pay for most of my expenses. I may have to earn some money myself.
A good many college students do work for pay, although it is desirable to spend most of your time in studying, at least for the first year. When you are ready to go to college, I will be glad to write your counselors and ask them to help you find work. Where had you planned on going to college?
I don't know. I suppose to the state university, since it's so close and I can live at home. Do you see anything wrong with my plan?
No. You can get good training there. Miss Harrison thinks very highly of their courses in secretarial training. I have the bulletins describing their business courses. Take them and study them. It's a good idea to begin planning now, even a year ahead of time.
But, Mr. Adams, I want to do something now.
Oh, but there are many things that you can do right now, June. I suggest that you talk these matters over with your parents, and if they would like to see me, I'll be very glad to talk with them.
Oh, that'll be fine.
Tomorrow we can go over your program for next quarter, and then later we can check your courses with the entrance requirements to the university. Next semester, I'd like to give you some of these books and pamphlets to read.
I'd like to talk to you again about this.
And I'll want to talk with you, June, at least twice each semester. You see, this problem of making a choice is not a simple one, and it cannot be decided in a single day. We'll review your tentative choice as you learn more about yourself and the world in which you will live and work.
Thank you very much. You've helped me a lot.
And you're welcome, June. I'll see you tomorrow.
However, your committee will continue to investigate and hopes to present a definite recommendation at next month's meeting of the Civic Association.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Willis. I want to talk about, I think we need a playground here on the west side. We need it because we need a place for our boys and girls to play. A playground.
Mr. Willis has an important idea to express, but he lacks the vocabulary to express it. Finding the exact words to fit your ideas is one of the first steps in building your vocabulary. People can be interested in new ideas when those ideas are expressed in well-selected words. This use of exact words to communicate your ideas applies to written words as much as to spoken words.
Hi, Dad. Would you be interested in... Oh, what's the matter?
Oh, nothing.
Something go wrong at the meeting?
Yes. I sort of made a... What's on your mind, son?
I thought you might like to read my term paper before I hand it in tomorrow.
Well, yes, of course. Our public parks, monuments, or playgrounds. Huh? Much of the juvenile delinquency in our community can be traced to our lack of public playgrounds and our lack of a planned recreational program. We are not without our public parks, but they are landscape monuments rather than playgrounds planned for the direction of youthful energy into character-building channels. Why, Pete, you express your ideas very well, but this isn't the way you talk, is it?
Well, that depends. But you see, this is a term paper, and, well, as I understand it, when you're talking or writing, you use words that fit the occasion.
But here, the words you use, they sound good, and they seem to be the right words to say what you mean.
Well, that's what I...
Where'd you learn all those words?
Well, you see, I keep a vocabulary notebook. It's a good way to learn new words to increase your vocabulary, so you can express your ideas better. Whenever I come across a new word, reading or listening to someone, I write it down. Later, I put it in this notebook.
Let's see.
I write down the pronunciation and the definitions of each word, and then some synonyms. But then, of course, I try using the word. Using the word correctly a few times is what really fixes it in your vocabulary. And a good working vocabulary helps you to be more explicit.
Well, you certainly surprised me with your vocabulary. Yes, indeed. Be more explicit.
So Mr. Willis began a vocabulary notebook in a business-like way. First, he considered the context in which the word was used.
Now, where did I hear that? From Mary. She was talking about redecorating this room.
Dear, I think we ought to put a valance over the window. It would make it more dramatic. Don't you think a valance would be effective?
Valance must be some kind of decoration. But do I have to bother with all these special words? Maybe I'd better. I certainly want to have a say in how the house is decorated. Valance. Short curtain as the valance over the top of a window. The valance would look good up there. Maybe this will help me understand what Mary's talking about.
Valance had only a single meaning. Other words, like vacillate, have many meanings. The only way to tell which meaning is intended is from the context in which it is used.
Synonyms: fluctuate, waver, oscillate, Wait a minute. Too many words. Mean nearly the same thing, but still they're different. Nobody can learn all those words. I'm going to bed.
But next morning, Mr. Willis found he couldn't escape unfamiliar words when his wife called.
Oh, John,
Yes, dear.
will you stop at the library and get me that anthology of plays?
All right, dear. Anthology. Why does everybody in this family use these fancy words?
In the morning newspaper, he found words that looked familiar enough, yet when he studied them, their meanings weren't explicit. Even in his work, he began to be aware that he used words that he could not define precisely.
That it is not feasible to allocate necessary production facilities. Feasible. Allocate.
Excuse me, Mr. Willis.
There's a gentleman here from the ABC Printing Company. He wants to discuss their new electrotyping process with variable type fonts. I'll tell him you're busy to come back later.
Feasible. Ultimatum.
Electrotyping.
Allocate.
Anthology.
Feasible. Ultimatum.
Electrotyping.
Allocate.
Anthology.
Feasible. Allocate. Feasible. Allocate. Feasible. Allocate. Feasible.
Explicit. You know, Dad, explicit. A good working vocabulary helps you to be more explicit.
Well, I guess I need this. Anthology. An anthology of modern plays. This is the book Mary wanted. Oh, so that's what an anthology is. A collection. Now, what else came of my trip to the library?
Each of us has certain interests which we need to share with others. If we know the special vocabulary, we will understand what people are talking about, and other people will understand us. This book will help Mr. Willis have a say in the decoration of his home. This book on the fundamentals of printing will help him in the conduct of his business. Books on special interest subjects help us build the vocabulary we need to talk the language of others.
And that's not the only language I'm going to talk. At the next meeting of the Civic Association, I'm going to sell my idea, or my name isn't Willis.
The chair recognizes Mr. Willis.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, for many years now, our city council has wavered between a policy of no parks and beautiful but useless parks. The time has come to present the council with an ultimatum. An ultimatum demanding for the West Side.
Yes, people can be interested in new ideas when those ideas are expressed clearly and effectively. Increased knowledge of words has enabled Mr. Willis to think through his ideas more logically and to present them more effectively to an appreciative audience.
We will show them that it is feasible, that the city budget is nothing more or less than a plan for spending our money. A plan which can and must be adapted to meet our needs.
Words that we choose carefully to say what we mean, choose for the audience and the occasion, help us gain support for our ideas. And not only in speaking. Effective use of words helps us think and write more forcefully and with more interest when we prepare term papers and other school assignments. Command of words helps us contribute to debates and discussions. We communicate more quickly and more effectively. Being skilled in the use of words aids us in selling ourselves when we look for jobs. Whenever we're around people, a good vocabulary helps us say what we mean and understand what others mean. Pete has developed his skill in communication through words, just as Mr. Willis has, just as you can, by being alert to words, by using words that say exactly what you mean, by building your vocabulary.
To see that program carried out, then we can achieve our goal by going before the council and making our demands explicit.
Picture on my wall, just to remind me how many boys and girls still need my help. Of course, there are fewer like that every year. I like to think about the many children I've helped and how much happier I've made them. As I sit here in my chair, oh, but you can't see me, can you? Let me make myself visible There. I keep myself invisible most of the time. That way it's easier for me to help boys and girls learn good habits. Lots of times they don't even know I'm helping them. Let me tell you about one boy I've been helping. His name is Stanley. I use my magic wand to take you to him. Ready? Let's go! I'd already helped Stanley a lot. He had many good habits. He washed his face at least twice a day and his hands 4 or 5 times a day. He did it every day without having to think about it because it was a habit. But there was one habit Stanley hadn't learned yet. He didn't clean his fingernails when he washed his hands. And goodness, how dirty they were. So I decided to use my magic. I said, Stanley, dirty nails carry germs, and they look ugly too. You go right back and brush them. Stanley learned that a good scrubbing with a stiff fingernail brush every morning and night at least made his nails clean and neat. He learned to dry his hands carefully, especially around the fingernails. Once he learned these good habits, no one ever scolded him for dirty nails again. Washing his hair every week is another good habit I helped Stanley learn. I taught him to start by washing his comb and brush each time he washes his hair. There are always hairs in a hairbrush. I'll tell you why in a moment. After they're out, he washes his comb and brush in soapy water and then rinses every bit of soap out. He washes his hair under the shower. Warm water, a mild soap or shampoo, and plenty of gentle rubbing is all it takes. He rubs with his fingertips, not his fingernails, so that he doesn't hurt the tender skin under the hair. When he rinses out this rubbing, his hair is fairly clean, but not quite clean enough. Our soaping will really do the job. And plenty of rinse. Now those are some of the good habits I helped Stan learn. Now I promise to tell you why there are always hairs in a hairbrush. Suppose you had magic eyes, and when you looked in the mirror, you could see closer and closer and closer. And suppose you could see right through your skin and see the root that a hair grows from. If your magic eyes could speed up the growing, you'd see that the new growth always comes at the root. As the hair gets longer and longer, it will finally come loose from the root. A new hair starts to grow and pushes against the old one. Brushing pulls out the old hair and leaves more room for the new one. If your magic eyes look closer, they'd see little sacs on each hair. These sacs make which protects your skin and hair from getting too dry to spread this oil all over your hair and makes it glossy and pretty. When this oil gets dirty, soap is used with it so it can be washed away, but every bit of the soap must be rinsed out afterwards, since any soap that's left will leave a dull film over your hair and keep it from pretty again. The nail grows from a root too, under the fold of skin at the base, the edge of the cuticle. Sometimes a bit of the skin forms a hangnail. As the nail grows, it should be trimmed to just cover your fingertip. Now your hair can get sick. If you notice anything, be sure to tell your parents or teacher about it right away. It may be a disease called ringworm. It makes your head itch. Sometimes the hair falls out in patches. A doctor can help cure this disease. Another disease is dandruff. Or you may find that instead of these thin, flat flakes, you have little white specks that look like tiny eggs. And that's just what they are. They're called nits, and they're the eggs of head lice. They're easy to get rid of, so tell your parents or teacher about them right away. Anyone might get a disease. The best safeguard is to keep yourself clean. Don't use anybody's comb but your own, and don't wear anyone else's hat. Now, keeping clean is only part of caring for your hair and nails. Let me tell you about somebody else I've helped. Her name is Alice. I'll use my magic wand again. Ready? Let's go! She certainly needed to learn some good habits in caring for her hair. So I used my magic. I said, Alice, you go right back and brush your hair till it shines. So I helped her learn the habit of brushing her hair every night, 100 strokes or more. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But it's worth taking the time for. It makes hair gleam and glisten, but even more important, it makes hair healthier too. So it's just as important for boys as it is for girls. I've helped many boys and girls learn that habit. I helped Alice learn to take care of her nails, too. She files them to keep them from getting too long and to give them a pretty shape. But she's careful not to get them too short. She makes her nails pretty, too, by pushing the cuticle off the nail. She does it with a soft piece of wood called an orange stick. Wood won't cut her skin the way sharp metal might. A cuticle oil softens the cuticle, makes it easier to push back. Oh, here's a hangnail. Hangnails are really nails. They're pieces of skin that start to pull away from the nail. Drying your fingers well helps prevent hangnails. I helped Alice learn the habit of cutting them off with a scissors instead of pulling might take off too much. Feel good to think about Alice, and all the girls help to learn good habits. Once you've learned a good habit, it'll work for you all your life. Such little things as brushing your nails clean when you wash your hands, hair every week, or oftener if it needs it. Brushing your hair at strokes every day, whether you're a boy or a girl. And keeping your nails trimmed, not too long and not too short. Those are some good habits that many boys and girls have already learned. But there are still some who need my help.
Hello, Mom. This is Ralph. Judy and Frank want me to stay for dinner. Is it all right with you? Oh, gee, thanks. Bye.
There's something we all enjoy about staying for dinner. Have you ever thought why? It's because eating with others is fun. People like to come together at meal times. They enjoy each other's company while they're enjoying good food. Mealtime is fun for Frank. And it's fun for Judy, too. But it's different with Ralph.
Will you have some peas, Ralph?
Gosh, Mrs. Scott, I don't like peas.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, how about a baked potato then?
Well, okay. Gee, Ralph, why aren't you eating? Remember that picture we saw? What picture? The picture with the hand and the 5 groups of food. Oh, that was just schoolwork.
No, Ralph isn't enjoying his dinner much. Maybe it's because of that candy bar he had just before dinner. Whatever it is, Ralph's good time with Frank and Judy is spoiled. The next day is Saturday, and Ralph's tired. But Frank and Judy feel differently.
We're going skating today. Can Ralph come with us?
Well, I don't know. I think he's still in his room. Just a moment. Let me see. Ralph, Frank and Judy are here and want you to go skating with them.
Hi, Frank. Hi, Judy. Hi. Can you go skating with us outside? It's just right. I don't feel like going skating. Thanks anyway.
Oh, well, okay. That's too bad. Maybe he can go tomorrow. Bye, kids.
Bye.
That's how it's been for quite some time. Ralph just hasn't had the pep that he should have. And now, Ralph begins to wonder why. Maybe there was something more in last week's classwork than he had thought. That hand, for instance, that his teacher had drawn. 5 fingers that point the way to health. What was it now? Bread and butter or margarine, milk and cheese, meat and eggs, vegetables, and fruits. Those are the foods you should eat every day if you want to be healthy. The first one, bread and butter or margarine, reminds him of Kenneth. Why? Because those are foods, and Kenneth has the most energy in class. Whole grain breads like whole wheat and rye are especially good for you. If you do eat white bread, make sure it's enriched. Enriched bread has vitamins added to it. Cereals give the same kind of energy and health values that bread does, especially whole wheat cereals and oatmeal. Butter and margarine contain fats. They give you energy in a different way from breads and cereals. Butter and fortified margarine have vitamin A in them, which is necessary to good health. The second finger that points to health represents milk and cheese, and somehow they remind Ralph of the tallest children in class. That's because milk and cheese help the body grow. Milk is about the most perfect food there is. A glassful at every meal is good for you, and with one more, that makes a quart a day. Vitamin D milk helps build strong bones and teeth. And Ralph has decided that it must be lots of milk which has given Linda such a bright smile. Cheese is a bodybuilder too, and there are many kinds to choose from. The third finger represents meat and eggs. And Ralph thinks of George right away, because he's the huskiest and the strongest boy in class. Meat and eggs help the body grow and make it strong. Meat is good for you, and there are many kinds. There's beef, there's pork and ham, there's lamb, fish is good, and so is chicken and other poultry. An egg a day is good for you too. Boiled, fried, scrambled, poached, or any way. Meats and eggs are high in protein, which helps build red blood and strong muscles. The fourth finger, pointing the way to health, represents vegetables. And here Ralph thinks of several children in his class, for there are many kinds of vegetables. Potatoes, for instance, are an energy food, and baked potatoes, eaten with their skins and butter or margarine, have lots of vitamins and minerals too. When it comes to green and yellow vegetables, Ralph thinks of Wendy, the prettiest girl in the class. And there are so many different kinds. Green vegetables like string beans, asparagus, and broccoli. There are salad vegetables like lettuce, and many others like celery, radishes, and carrots. Carrots are good cooked too, and so is squash and other yellow vegetables like rutabaga. Cauliflower and cabbage are good too. Yes, there are hundreds of wonderful vegetables. The important thing is that all kinds of vegetables are good for you, whether they're raw or cooked. They're important for good health, for lots of energy and pep, for clear skin and bright eyes, for shining, gleaming hair, and above all, for that wonderful sense of feeling good. The last finger represents fruit, and there are two kinds. Some are especially rich in vitamin C and help ward off some of the diseases that keep you in bed. They help cuts and bruises heal faster too. Foods with lots of vitamin C in them include orange juice, grapefruit, strawberries, melons, and of course, whole oranges. Certain vegetables like tomatoes and raw cabbage are also rich in vitamin C. You should have a vitamin C food every day, provided it isn't stored in the body very long. Finally, there are the fruits we eat for dessert. Wonderful fruits like apples, bananas, peaches, pears, plums, grapes, and many others. Nuts make a good dessert too. They're rich in energy, proteins, vitamins, and minerals. And now, as Ralph thinks about it, he realizes that each of the children he admires depend on all the food's health and not on just one food. George is strong, Wendy is pretty, Linda has a bright smile, and Kenneth has lots of pep, not because of any one food that they eat, but because they eat some of all kinds of food. For it takes 5 fingers to point the way to healthful eating habits. And Ralph goes over them in his mind. Every day, eat bread and butter, milk and cheese, meat and eggs, vegetables, fruits, and a vitamin C food. Thinking about all this food has made him hungry. He has a candy bar around as usual. But now Ralph has a better idea of why he shouldn't let candy and sweets substitute for other foods. Sweets don't have the proteins, the vitamins, or the minerals, the bodybuilding qualities of other foods. So for the next few months, Ralph really worked at learning to eat all kinds of foods.
Ralph, would you like some peas?
Oh, I don't want. Well, okay.
Well, what happened to you?
He'd sample everything that was served to him. And even if it didn't happen to be a food that he preferred, he'd eat some of it anyway. At night, he'd go over the 5 food groups and see how he had done that day. After a month or 2 of this, Ralph suddenly realized that a slow change had taken place without his noticing it. He found that eating had become fun. What's more, his health was better and he had more pep. He had more fun than he used to, and more friends. And all because he had learned to eat by counting his foods on his fingers.
This boy and girl, coming home from school, look quite content with life. And why not? They're looking forward to an important date, dinner at home with the family. What's the matter? Doesn't that sound exciting to you? Well, to them it's a special occasion, as it has been ever since they sat down to dinner in high chairs. Why should they feel that way about something you take so completely for granted? Well, let's see if we can find out. First of all, daughter has changed from school clothes to something more festive. Dressing a little makes her feel and consequently look more charming. Even the table takes on a special air. Mother, too, changes from her daytime clothes. The women of this family seem to feel that they owe it to the men of the family to look relaxed, rested, and attractive at dinner time. Brother is spending an hour before dinner catching up on his homework. He has plans this evening. Perhaps that explains the telephone call. But he won't spend a lot of time on the phone either. When there are several members of the family to be considered, it is not a good idea for one member to monopolize the phone. And it is never good to allow telephone conversations to interfere with studies. Is it that late? Dad'll be here any minute. Better tell Mother she's needed in the kitchen. Brother notices the time and realizes that he must put things in order and clean himself up in time for dinner. Hello there. Junior is always in a hurry, particularly for dinner. But first there's a cleanup job to do on this young man. Brother takes it upon himself to help share Junior's responsibility for keeping their room in good order and keeping Junior in good order, too. Punctuality is stressed in this household. By that I mean hair is combed and faces and hands scrubbed before the boys come to the table so they won't delay the meal. Now, mother and daughter put the finishing touches on the dinner. Father, too, looks forward to this date with the family. He has had a hard day at the office, and in his briefcase are some contracts which must be looked over tonight. But in the meantime, he will relax at dinner with those he loves. A simple centerpiece made from some flowers which grow in the backyard is another of daughter's contributions to the dinner. But it takes up a little too much room, so she moves it to the sideboard. These boys greet their dad as though they are genuinely glad to see him, as though they had really missed being away from him during the day and are anxious to talk to him. This is the time for pleasant discussion in a thoroughly relaxed mood. They don't pick this time of the day to spring unpleasant surprises on Dad. If they have disagreeable news, they'll postpone the discussion until another time. And this is no time to dun Father for a raise in your allowance, new clothes, or argue about other financial matters. Ah, dinner time. Yes, Mother, Junior remembered to clean up. Brother seats Junior. Then helps Mother to her chair as he would his best girl. Well, the dinner date has begun, and they're all happy about it. Many families throughout the country observe the custom of saying grace at mealtime. It is always treated with reverence and respect. Napkins on the lap, the family awaits service. They converse pleasantly while Dad serves. I said pleasantly, for that is the keynote at dinner time. It is not only good manners, but good sense. Pleasant, unemotional conversation helps digestion. Father serves Mother first, then daughter, then the boys. Don't worry, fellas, you won't get left. Help cut your meat, Junior? Of course. By example, older children can teach younger ones good table manners. No one starts eating until Father has served himself. Always wait for the hostess, in this case Mother, to begin eating before you start. Let Father and Mother guide the conversational trend if they desire. After all, they made all this possible and may want to talk over their day with each other. Tell Mother how good the food is. Maybe Sis rates a compliment too. It makes them want to continue pleasing you. Well, all this is good general advice, but there are some specific don'ts. Maybe the family will demonstrate for us. Don't monopolize the conversation and go on and on without stopping. Nothing destroys the charm of a meal more quickly. To say that the rest of the group is bored would be a gross understatement. Don't discuss unpleasant topics such as gruesome sights or sounds, or unpleasant occurrences. This is a time of pleasure, of charm and relaxation, remember? Don't make unkind comparisons about your stand of living. The dinner table is no place for discontent. It makes Dad and Mother uncomfortable and unhappy. Don't insult your brother or sister with offensive remarks about friends. Arguments, harsh words mean tension and distress for everyone. Do remember simply this. Treat the other members of your family with the same respect and cordiality you would show your most treasured friend outside the family circle. This does not mean you should be stiff or formal. With your own family, you can relax. Be yourself. Just be sure it's your best self. This is better. Now things are on an even keel again. Now we're ready for dessert. Most families don't have maids, so Mother needs help with the serving from the kitchen. Son says Mother has done enough. Watch him play butler. The removal of dishes from the main course and the serving of dessert set the stage for the conclusion of a thoroughly pleasant meal. Do you begin to see now how a date with your family can be a truly special occasion? Do you know why brother and sister looked forward to the evening? When the dinner hour at home is treated with a certain amount of graciousness and ceremony, it can be memorable. There is no family so poor but that the evening meal can be eaten in an atmosphere of warmth and gentleness. There is no family so busy but that it can come together in the evening for a dinner date which will give its members something to look back upon with happiness all their days.
This is a story about a chemistry that Herb bought for himself. His brother Billy. Let's all watch Billy and Herb and the chemistry set, and perhaps we'll learn some things about fair play. As you see this story, we want you to think about questions. Questions such as, what is fair play? Perhaps when the story is over, you'll want to talk about the... Now let's see what Herb's doing. He starts with two clear lists. It would be fun to do experiments like that. But Herb isn't going to let Billy try. Billy wants his dad to make Herb let him do it. He says Herb's not fair. And Dad thinks perhaps he'd better explain to Billy. Herb shares most of his things with Billy, but maybe it is fair for Herb to keep his own chemistry set and not let Billy play with it. After all, Billy is rather young, and he doesn't know how to use the chemistry things safely. He might break something or hurt himself. And Herb earned the set for himself, so he has a right to it. Do you think that's fair? What about it? To play fair, should Herb share the chemistry set? Well, Herb didn't share the set. He used it alone all evening. On Saturday morning, the boys usually help by doing the dishes, but what's this tug of war? It seems they want to dry them because neither wants to wash. Well, whose turn is it to wash the dishes? Herb's turn. Billy's turn. Taking turns is always fair, but here's another question to think about. How can Herb and Billy decide whose turn it is? Mother thinks it's fair to make a rule and follow it. She'll mark the turns on the calendar. Herb is older, so he will wash today while Billy dries, and next time it will be Billy's turn to wash the dishes. So Herb and Billy can play fair by taking turns and by obeying the rules. That's one way to play fair. Oh, Herb's cut his hand. Must have been on a sharp knife in the sink. Mother will have to clean the cut. And Billy has an idea. How about a bandage to keep the dirt out of the cut? Another way to play fair is to be helpful. Well, Billy has the bandages from the bathroom now, and... Herb's chemistry set. Herb said not to touch it, but... Oh, he's downstairs. He'll never find out. What do you think? Should Billy use Herb's chemistry set? Remember your answer to that question. Well, let's see how Billy makes out. My, those things look strange to Billy. Well, try this one. There. There. Now. Oh! No, Billy isn't hurt. Just stained with harmless chemical ink. But Herb's chemistry set. Ooh, Herb's waiting for the bandages. Here they are, to fix Herb's hand. But what about Billy's stained hand? Well, a little bandage like this will keep dirt out of Herb's cut. Herb's all right now. But Billy offers to wash and dry the dishes. To do both. Herb thinks he could help. But don't you suppose Billy sort of wants to do something for Herb? To make up for the chemistry accident? Herb says, all right, it's a good chance to work with the chemistry set. Uh-oh. Herb will find out about the broken test tube. But Mother thinks the cut heals a bit, and she goes back to finish her work. Now Herb remembers that it's time for Billy's favorite program, and he offers to get the station for Billy. After all, Herb wants to play fair.
I
with lots of fresh milk and fruit so you'll grow big and strong. And now, back to the adventures of Mary and Eddie. When we last saw our young friends, the captain had just landed their rocket plane on the Billy surface of the moon. isn't really listening to the radio, is he? He has too much to think about. Herb has been playing fair with Billy, and Billy ought to play fair, too. He ought to tell Herb about the chemistry set. And that won't be easy. Besides, maybe Billy ought to buy a new test tube for Herb. But Billy has only a little money saved. He'd been planning to buy some marbles, and if he buys the test tube for Herb, he won't have enough left to buy his marbles. What should Billy do? To play fair, should Billy buy the marbles or the test tube? Well, Billy decides he will play fair. And after he tells Herb, Billy will go up and clean up the mess he's left in Herb's room. So Billy buys a new test tube, and there's Herb's chemistry set, just as good as new. Herb is pleased that Billy played fair. Of course, Billy will have to wait for his new marbles, but he feels better this way. And do you know what Herb decides? He's going to let Billy use the chemistry set some of the time, and he'll teach Billy how to do it safely. That is, if Father and Mother agree. Why, of course, they're glad that Herb and Billy have learned to play fair. Herb and Billy are glad, too. And what have we learned about fair play? To play fair, when should we share things? How do we decide whose turn it is? Should we respect the property of other people? What should we do to make up for our mistakes? What is fair play?
The modern miracles of sound motion pictures and radio open up vast sources of entertainment and instruction. To benefit from these, we need our ears, which interpret for us the multitude of sound waves they receive. Now, if you will lend me your ears while watching this picture on the screen, I will tell you about these invisible waves and how our ears are able to convert them into sound. We all know that if a pebble is dropped into water, ring-like ripples spread in all directions over the surface. A doorbell ringing sends out similar but invisible wave-like impulses which travel through the air with a speed of about 1,100 feet per second. Sounds of every kind are transmitted to our ears by just such waves. Even now, as my voice comes to you, it is carried by these airwaves to be conveyed to your own brain by nerve impulses created within your ear. As we shall see, this feat of conversion requires the highly refined and perfect mechanism which is our ear. To begin with, air impulses are caught by the outer shell and directed into the ear canal. Now let us look into this canal by using a specially designed instrument like this otoscope, which is used by physicians when examining our ears. There in the center we see a small disc, which is the drum membrane. Now here it is at very close range and very much enlarged. Sound waves beat against this membrane as drumsticks beat upon a kettle drum or tympanum. So it is naturally called the tympanic membrane. It lies a little more than an inch from the outer opening and completely shuts off the eardrum from the ear canal, just as a drumhead completely covers a drum. Hidden immediately beyond this barrier lies the oddly shaped and highly specialized organ which by far surpasses any instrument of human invention in its ability to detect and to interpret sounds of every conceivable kind and degree. It is indeed rightly called the most remarkable mechanical system in the human body. And now let us examine the general position of this apparatus when seen from the front. Here is the ear canal and the more internal parts which have an outlet into the throat. The Eustachian tube. This important connecting passage opens just above the tonsil. Like other important sense organs, the ear lies close to the brain. All sound waves entering the ear are converted into nerve impulses. These impulses are conveyed to the brain by the auditory nerve, the shortest path to the auditory center, which controls the organ and where sound perception or hearing is located. The bones of the skull also encase the inner ear. Here we can see it occupying a group of intricate hollows and channels. These are safely protected within the hardest portion of the temporal bone. This portion is actually the hardest bony structure in the whole body. Now let us greatly enlarge the picture of one ear so that we may examine its construction and its parts in greater detail in this sectional view. The ear is divided into three parts. First, the external or outer ear, consisting of the shell or pinna, and the auditory canal or meatus. These and many of the parts that are to follow have been given their names because they resemble familiar objects. Now, second, the middle ear or eardrum, also called the tympanum, consisting of the drum membrane, already compared to a drum head, and the drum cavity. This is shut away from the outer ear by the drum membrane, but communicates with the throat by means of the Eustachian tube, already mentioned. The most striking feature of the middle ear are these three tiny but delicately fashioned bones. They're called the ear bones or ossicles. Like the outer ear, the middle ear contains air. It is the purpose of the Eustachian tube to equalize the air pressure on both sides of the drum membrane to prevent its being injured by violent noises or changes in air pressure. Beyond the middle ear lies the third part, called the inner ear or labyrinth. Unlike the outer and the middle ear, this part is filled with a liquid instead of air and contains the delicate apparatus which transforms sound waves into nerve impulses. And now let's look at a still larger view of the middle ear with its three ear bones or ossicles, and then see what happens when sound waves strike the drum membrane. This bone, consisting of a head and handle, is called a hammer or malleus and is fastened by the handle to the drum membrane. United to the malleus by a joint is the anvil or incus, which in turn touches the stirrup or stapes. The footplate of the stirrup is attached by a movable ligament to an opening, which is called the oval window. If from any cause the drum membrane is forced inward, its movement is transmitted to the stapes, and the upper part of its footplate swings into the inner ear as on a hinge. Repeated pushes make the plate swing in and out, agitating the liquid which fills the inner ear. And now let's see how sound waves coming from a ringing bell act upon the ear mechanism. Here we see in slow motion how these sound waves, by beating against the drum membrane, are carried across the middle ear to the inner ear by the chain of ossicles. The inner ear, or labyrinth, contains the minute but extraordinary mechanism which finally converts sound waves into nerve impulses. If the eardrum should be destroyed, sound waves could still reach the inner ear through the surrounding bone and cause some sensation of hearing. But destruction of the labyrinth itself causes complete deafness. The labyrinth, as its name implies, consists of a maze of passages or tunnels hollowed out of the solid surrounding bone. These passages are loosely lined with a skin or membrane. Now, if we remove its surrounding bone, we reveal the shape of the entire labyrinth as it is formed by its lining membrane. Part of the labyrinth consists of these 3 ring-shaped passages called the semicircular canals. These, however, only aid the body in keeping its balance and need not be considered in connection with hearing. Our real interest is in this rounded portion with the 2 small openings, and, of course, the part with which it is united and which looks like the shell of a snail. Returning to our sectional view, we see that the rounded portion contains a hollow chamber lying between the middle ear and the snail. A number of openings lead to adjoining parts, just like doors do from a hallway. So it is called the vestibule. These openings in the vestibule lead to the semicircular canals. Actively related to the hearing mechanism are these 2 openings which have already been pointed out on the outside of the labyrinth and which allow sound waves to pass from the eardrum to the inner ear. First of these openings is called the round window. It is covered by a very thin membrane. The second, the oval window. Through it are received sound impulses transmitted by the plate of the stapes, which covers it. And the third opening leads into the upper half of the passage, which has the shape of a snail or cockleshell, and so is called the cochlea. Within the cochlea is contained the mechanism which finally converts sound vibrations into nerve impulses. Let us look at the inside of this amazing little instrument. If we were to slice through the middle of the cochlea and then turn the separated portion face upwards, we would see inside a spiral-shaped canal which circles around a central core of bone called the modiolus. This canal is divided into an upper and lower portion by a membrane shaped like a spiral ramp. This membrane is of a highly complicated internal construction and when agitated by sound waves sends out nerve impulses. These are conducted to the brain by nerves which unite to form the main auditory nerve leading to the auditory center. Now let's look at a simple diagram of the cochlea and its action. And this time, let's take off the top. Here again, briefly, we recognize the vestibule with the oval window covered by the stirrup. And directly below is the round window covered by its membrane. And here is the third opening, which leads directly into the inner channel of the cochlea. This white line represents the all-important spiral membrane, which transforms sound waves into the sensation of hearing. As we have seen before, this space is filled with a liquid. Now here again, we observe the action of sound waves upon the ear. This is merely a simple picture of the complicated action that results when sound waves enter the inner ear by way of drum and ear bones. The liquid, when set into vibration, causes wave-like shakings of the spiral membrane. These shakings, in turn, set up the nerve action, which, when carried to the brain, results in the sensation of hearing. The ear, then, is a very delicate and complicated mechanical device. Astonishingly sensitive in its ability to separate and to distinguish a vast medley of sounds, it excels by far the most ingenious and delicate instruments ever devised by man. While we possess the great blessing of good hearing, let us always strive to protect and to preserve this most precious gift of nature.